Beneath a sky poured in liquid silver, the moon hung like a silent oath above the world, and a narrow road, more rumor than road, cut through the sleeping hills like a wound that never healed. They called it the cursed path, the place where voices from yesterday braided with tomorrow's doubts, where hearts were weighed and illusions were peeled like old paint from a door. People whispered that the path stole what you weren't ready to face and returned it sharpened, that it could swallow even the bravest without a sound. But there are nights that press a person forward with the gravity of fate, and tonight that person was Kaido, a boy with stormwater in his eyes and a promise he refused to bury. He had heard too many times that he was not enough, that the cost of hope was grief, that some dreams needed to be abandoned like broken umbrellas after the rain. He had watched love fade from faces he cherished, watched the world turn indifferent when he needed it to be kind. And yet here he was, boots crunching frost, breath blooming in the cold, choosing to walk where no one asked him to, because something in him refused to die quietly. The first breath on the path felt like crossing a border. The air cooled, carried a sweetness of pine and a bitterness of iron like old blood. The trees leaned in, sentinels with bark scarred by lightning. Moonlight dripped through their branches in thin sheets, bandaging the road in glistening bands. Kaido lifted his hand and saw it tremble. He wasn't afraid of monsters. He was afraid of what the night would make him remember. Wind skated over the land, lifting small spirals of dust that hovered like spirits before sinking back to earth. The path sloped into a hollow, where the mist collected like a sleeping animal. When he stepped there, the world hushed, as if holding its breath to watch him. A low murmur rippled through the silence. Kaido thought it was the wind, until he heard his name, spoken like a question he had always avoided. He stopped. The sound did not come from any direction. It unfolded inside his chest. "Why do you walk?" it asked, cool as moon milk, soft as fur. Kaido swallowed and answered without lifting his head. "Because there's something in me I won't let break." The murmur held for a moment, then thinned away like a thread pulled from fabric. He kept walking. The ground changed from dirt to a ribbon of stone. Ancient sigils clung to the edges, half erased by moss, the way old prayers cling to the inside of a person's ribs even after faith is bruised. He touched one with his fingers. It pulsed under his skin like a heartbeat not his own. The first trial arrived without warning. One moment he walked beneath moon-pierced boughs. The next, the forest curved inward and became the corridor of his childhood home. The air smelled of tea, soap, laundry warmed by afternoon sun. A door stood at the end of the hall, ajar, spilling light like memory. Kaido knew what was behind it. He was not ready. The floor creaked, and he became the boy he had been, knees skinned, mind unfractured. He heard laughter, the precise rhythm of it, the way it always crescendoed at the exact same spot, a melody he could hum in his sleep. His sister's voice. He wanted to run to it. He wanted to slam the door shut and flee. Instead, he walked, a soldier advancing toward a wound. He pushed the door open. The room was empty. Sunlight filled it, bright enough to make his eyes water. In the center sat a paper crane, folded from a scrap of moonlight so delicate he feared his breath would tear it. He reached out. The crane dissolved into words. "Don't let the night teach you fear. Let it teach you how to walk in it." He closed his fist over emptiness and stepped back into the forest, where the hall collapsed into mist with a sigh. The curse, he realized, did not devour you. It drained you of denial. He continued, shoulders squared by inches. Farther along, he found a lake slick as black glass, reflecting the moon as if the sky had knelt to drink. A single stepping stone lay at the shore, then another a few feet ahead, then another, leading into the dark water. No path circled the lake. The only way across was to trust what you couldn't see yet. He fed his fear no words. He stepped onto the first stone. It rocked under his weight but did not sink. The second waited. The third appeared only when he chose to move again. The lake recorded each breath, stitched it to the mirrored stars. By the 10th stone, his legs shook. By the 12th, wind lifted ripples into whispering hands that tugged at his ankles. Halfway across, a voice rose from the water, familiar enough to make him choke. It spoke in the tone Kaido reserved for nights when he couldn't sleep. His own voice, worn thin. "Turn back. There's nothing for you but loss." Kaido clenched his jaw. The water darkened, and shapes formed beneath. Schools of regrets, each with his face and a mouthful of unfinished sentences. He nearly fell. Then he remembered a moment like a comet. His sister standing beneath the festival lanterns, palm against his forehead, laughing when he called her guardian of the moon. "You keep looking for permission to be yourself," she had said. "Start by giving it." He looked down at the lake, at the chorus of almosts, and said, "I will not turn back." The stone ahead surfaced with a bell-like note. He crossed the last few steps and climbed the opposite shore. Lungs pumping fire, knees wet. A laugh escaping that he hadn't expected. Short, raw, grateful. The night listened. The cursed path bent uphill through a colonnade of trees so tall they carried starlight in their crowns. Between them, the wind threaded white ribbons of fog that draped the trail. At the top stood a torii gate carved from bone-pale wood. Someone had tied a string of talismans under its lintel, scraps of cloth inked with prayers worn to near ghosts. Kaido reached out and felt warmth radiating through the wood, like a hand pressed back against his. He ducked through and entered a clearing where moonlight pooled like water in a bowl. At its center sat a shrine no higher than his chest, half devoured by bracken. A fox statue guarded it, its stone eyes alert and bright with lichen. Between its paws, a shallow dish cradled ash. The moment Kaito stepped closer, the ash leapt into a blue-white flame without heat. A whisper arose from the fire. No, not a whisper. A hush. The compassionate quiet of someone who has all night to listen. "What do you carry that is not yours?" it asked. Kaito thought of anger he had borrowed from people who had hurt him, of silence he had worn because the world did not know where to place his grief, of roles he had accepted because saying no sounded like betrayal. He opened his hands. Invisible weight slid from them into the flame, which flared, then narrowed to a steady candle. He breathed. The flame tipped and spilled itself out of the dish, arcing into the air. It gathered into a small pale fox with a tail shaped like a curve of moonlight. It lowered its head to him, a bow as formal as ceremony, then turned and trotted toward a path Kaito hadn't seen, its paws barely brushing the ground. He followed. The fox led him into a corridor of bamboo where the wind made green rain. The stalks clicked softly as they swayed, a language of patience. Kaito's steps slowed, fell into rhythm. When he emerged, he found himself at a stair of stone, etched with phases of the moon. New, crescent, first quarter, gibbous, full, gibbous again, last quarter, crescent, new. Each step hummed with a tone that vibrated in his bones. The fox waited atop the last riser beside a bell suspended from a black beam. Beneath the bell, a mallet wrapped in faded crimson cloth rested on a stand. Kaito reached for it and felt the history clinging to the wood. Hands that had rung the bell to begin again. He drew breath and struck. The sound rolled outward in a wave, pressed the forest to its knees. Lichens trembled. A shower of silver dust lifted from the ground and whirled like a constellation torn loose. The fox faded into that orbit and became part of it, a streak of living light. The bell's echo carried images into Kaito's mind. Not memory, not dream, but something wedged between. A field where children ran with lanterns, faces bright as sunrise. An old man teaching patience by pouring tea until the cup almost overflowed, and then stopped perfectly at the brim. A woman standing ankle-deep in the ocean at night, praising the tide for leaving and returning. Leaving and returning. The sound died slowly, like a tide returning. Kaito's heartbeat steadied. He turned, and found the way forward, blocked by a figure in armor black as the underside of a storm. Its helmet was antlered, not like a deer's, but like the fossil of a tree. Its face hidden behind a lacquered mask, whose only features were a mouthless line and two eyes that caught the moon and returned it colder. The figure's sword remained sheathed. It lifted one hand, palm empty, and Kaito felt a pressure in his chest as if that hand had closed around his ribs. "You come to wage war with your shadow," the figure said without moving its mouth. "The path allows this. But do you know whose shadow you swing at?" Kaito tried to answer and found his voice swollen shut. The figure did not wait. It stepped once, and the world rippled. The trees fled backward, the ground unstitched then restitched as a plaza of polished stone. 1,000 versions of Kaito stood around the circle, some younger, some older, some broken open by grief, some rigid with the armor of cynicism. Each carried a fragment of his voice, and all spoke at once. It was unbearable. The armored one gestured. Silence returned. "Choose," it said. "Which one of you walks forward?" Kaito turned slowly, eyes passing over faces that were both strangers and home. He found the boy who still believed apologies could glue everything back together. The teenager who had decided to make himself small to be loved. The young man whose laughter had become a shield that hid the ache behind his ribs. He wanted to choose the version of himself who smiled without flinching. He wanted to banish the others and pretend he had always been simple. But the path did not reward pretty lies. Kaito took a breath that felt like the first breath of winter and spoke to the circle. "I choose all of us." Murmurs skated across the plaza. The armored figure tilted its head as if hearing a song from another room. Kaito continued, voice rough but steady. "I won't amputate the parts of me that learned the hard way. I won't romanticize the parts that wish it were easy. I am the boy who hoped. I am the man who learned to rise. I am the version of me that broke, and the one that will not stay broken. If I walk forward, we walk forward together." The plaza fractured like thin ice, and then healed into forest again. The armored figure's mask had split down the center, revealing not a face but a mirror. In it, Kaito saw himself standing in moonlight with ash on his hands and a fox-shaped constellation above him. He raised his fingers, and the reflection did the same. The mirror did not tell him who he was. It asked him to decide. He lowered his hand. The armored one bowed once. When it straightened, its armor fell away in a drift of black petals that sublimed into mist. The road beyond was clear. He stepped into it, not triumphant, not invulnerable, but honest in a way that made his chest feel wide. The night grew brighter the deeper he walked, not because the moon changed, but because he did. The path wasn't shorter, his courage was longer. He came upon a village carved out of ruin. Houses leaned at tired angles. Windows stared with glassless eyes. Yet in a square, candles burned in bowls of water, each flame steady in its small lake. People had once lived here, had loved here. Their traces lingered in the way rope hung from a beam, in a child's chalk scribble sheltered under an eave. Kaito knelt by a candle and cupped his hand around the flame. Behind him, someone cleared their throat. He turned and met the gaze of a woman whose hair fell like night to her waist. Her kimono looked stitched from twilight. She carried no shadow. "You did not come here to mourn," she said. "You came to practice remembering without drowning." Her voice made him think of unrolling a scroll to find a message written in a hand you trust. "Who are you?" he asked. The woman smiled as if the question had too many answers. "Some call me Keeper of the Moon's Gate. Others call me what they need. Teacher, witness, lie-breaker. Tonight I am what you will not name. The permission you want from the world, but must write with your own steps." She gestured to the candles. "Do you know why they sit in water?" He shook his head. "Because wind will come," she said. "Because sometimes it is not a storm you need to survive, but a draft that arrives without warning. Because the things that keep burning are the things that learn to keep themselves safe." She reached out and touched his sternum with 2 fingers. "You are allowed to design your own harbor." The touch left no mark, and yet Kaito felt something settle. A blueprint unrolling in his ribs for a house he could live in no matter the weather outside. The keeper turned away, her feet barely bruising the dust, and disappeared into a doorway that was not there a moment before. He stood for a while and let silence filter him. Then he walked on. The cursed path narrowed where 2 cliffs leaned toward each other, leaving a corridor of stone that smelled of iron and rain. A thread of moonlight ran through it like a vein. As he entered, voices swelled, layered until they sounded like surf. He recognized them with a wince. They were all the voices that had named him incorrectly. Too sensitive, too stubborn, too much, not enough. The words wrapped around his ankles like kelp, trying to pull him off balance. He kept his eyes on the ribbon of light and made a new sound. Breath in a count, he whispered as he walked, a steady rhythm that thickened his spine. He did not shout back. He did not argue. He simply walked. One by one, the labels discovered they had no host and fell away like shed skins. At the far end of the corridor, the path opened onto a ridge, and below the ridge the world lay like a sleeping animal. Field and river, village and mountain, everything touched by moon. Kaito stood and let the view empty and fill him. He understood then a thing that tested his teeth. The curse was not that the path hurt. The curse was that people believed pain disproved meaning. He had worn that belief like a coat. He shrugged and felt it slide from his shoulders to the ground. He did not pick it up. A final ascent waited, lined with stones stacked by hands that had walked before him. Some stacks leaned, some had toppled, some stood immaculate as teeth. Kaito paused beside one that had fallen and rebuilt it without ceremony. The act felt like giving a stranger water. Halfway up, the foxlight reappeared, twining around his ankles, then spiraling up to orbit his shoulders. He understood without words. He was not alone and never had been. At the summit, a circle of bare earth reflected the moon like a pupil. In its center lay a blade, not iron, not steel, a thing spun from lunar filament. It was beautiful in the way truth is beautiful when you finally stop resisting it. Kaito did not pick it up to cut anything outside himself. He lifted it as you lift a pen. He wrote on the air, "I will walk forward." The letters glowed, then dissolved into him. The blade evaporated, not lost, but translated into marrow. With that, the night seemed to exhale. The forest uncoiled. The stones warmed a degree. Far away, an owl called once as if signing the bottom of a letter. Kaito felt tired the way you feel after a long cry that emptied your lungs of old smoke. He sat on the ground and watched his breath. He did not try to make it profound. He did not try to make it useful. He let it be what it was, evidence of presence. He thought of the boy at the beginning of the path, the one who believed the world needed to be kind before he could be brave. He sent that boy a message. "You were enough then. You are enough now." When he rose, dawn had not yet claimed the edges of the world, but something softer rode the air, as if the night had agreed to be less heavy. He walked down the other side of the hill. The cursed path did not end so much as it thinned until it was indistinguishable from ordinary road. He passed a stream arguing cheerfully with its stones. He passed a stand of wildflowers that opened only at night, their throats luminous. He passed a farmhouse with a light in the kitchen where someone wrote a letter and did not know they were part of the same constellation. At the edge of the forest, he turned once more. The path behind him was already forgetting to exist, the way pain fades when you honor it by learning. He pressed 2 fingers to his lips and then to the air in front of him. A salute not to what haunted him, but to what had hidden inside the haunting, waiting to be claimed. If you are listening, the night seemed to say, walk. If you are afraid, walk. If you have been told your softness disqualifies you, walk until softness becomes your steel. If you have been broken, bring your pieces. The moon knows how to make mosaics. Kaito stepped into the waking world with the patience of mountains stitched into his posture. He would still hear the old voices sometimes, like radio stations bleeding into each other on a long drive. He would still grieve, but he would not bargain with his worth again. He would love like a tide, returning, returning. And when the sky darkened and others came to the mouth of the forest trembling as he had, he would stand with them and share what he learned. That the cursed path beneath the moonlight is a teacher that does not punish, it reveals. That courage is not a roar, but the steady drum of feet on stone. That hope is not an accident. It is a practice. And if you, watching through the window of this story, feel the weight of your own path gathering at your heels, hear this as clearly as your own name. You do not have to walk it pretty. You only have to walk it true. The night will not force you. But if you step forward, it will meet you with everything you need to keep stepping. And when your mouth tastes like iron and your lungs ache and your heart throws sparks that scare you with their brightness, you will learn the oldest secret that survived every empire. You are not what hurt you. You are what you build from it. The moon lowered, pale and watchful. The horizon made a promise of color. Kaido smiled. A small private thing, a candle inside a glass, and kept walking. If this journey found you where you needed it, if it lit a match where your doubt had been, stay with us. Subscribe to Anime Odyssey, like this video to help it reach someone standing at the edge of their own night, and share it with a friend who needs a light. We will keep telling stories that remember how strong you are, especially when you don't. Under this moon, across this path, we walk forward together.